Welcome to episode 29 of Uncontained. I'm your host, Aaron Static Render, and just last week I put up an open call to be a guest on Uncontained on Facebook and a few of the groups that I belong to, and I've had some really good response to that lately. That's actually how I got this guest for today's show, Christian Bernal, and I will continue to put up those open calls. Before it was just pretty much a referral basis to be a guest on the show, but I want to open it up to everybody who's in the entertainment industry and would like to be part of Uncontained, share their story, share their trials, their failures, their successes, and also, of course, how they live uncontained. Today's guest is Christian Bernal. He's an artist. He's pretty much an all-around artist with not just one medium to work with. He's done digital art, tattooing, stand-up comedy, storytelling. He's recently started making music and has a couple big shows coming up as well in the art world. The first one is his first solo exhibition, which happens to be in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Erotic Heritage Museum. Okay, I'm going to try to say the title of the show, but I'll probably slaughter it, so you'll have to listen to him say it during the show. It's Alienum Extratus. I think that's how you say it, but as I said, could possibly be completely wrong. And then again, another show he has coming up is in October in Racine, Wisconsin. It's Tattoo Artists Beyond the Skin, featuring artwork that they've put out that is not on the skin, non-tattoo related artwork, which is a really cool concept. We'll get into that in the show. So enough talk about the show. Let's just get right into it. This is tattoo artist, musician, stand-up comic, storyteller, Christian Bernal. How are you doing today, Christian?
All right, how are you doing? When you string it all together like that, it does sound pretty interesting.
Yeah, you got quite the list of professions going on. When it comes down to it, what are you first and foremost?
Just an artist.
Just an artist?
Yeah.
All right. And what kind of art do you typically do, Christian?
Right now I'm actually working primarily digitally, and doing my tattoo work. That's about it, man. Working digitally it frees me. I don't have to worry about cleaning things up. I don't have to worry about storing things. And carrying around a ton of work because I like to work in sort of large format. And as an artist, you tend to accumulate a lot of stuff over time, and then you have to worry about on a constant basis. When I move, am I going to have room for all this stuff? I got to make sure that I'm making enough money so that I can afford some place to store all this stuff and house it properly, and then I'll probably have to build something to store it in, and then my studio will more than likely be the place that I'm going to work in, so I can be surrounded by all this stuff that I'm already haven't been able to get rid of while I'm trying to make more stuff that I might not be able to get rid of.
All right. And now with the digital stuff, it's nice you just had to have a hard drive instead of a storage unit or your studio. So, for people that don't know you very well, will you tell my Uncontained audience a little bit about yourself?
I'm just the artist. I'm an artist, dude. That's it. There's nothing in the past that's particularly. I don't have a Batman story that like why I became the superhero. I just my mom was an artist. I have an uncle who's actually kind of like a famous muralist. And so I had them. My mom ended up not being an artist because, back then that wasn't what women did. But she got me into the arts and sort of pushed me in that direction. And I guess I had a natural inclination for it. Eventually, I went to school. I went to college for art, and actually, it's like I gloss over that too, or minimize it, because when I got out of college, I just stopped making art altogether. I was really sick of art. I was sick of the idea of fine art. Yeah, I remember like I literally remember like I want to say like my first week of junior college. There was an issue of High Times that had H.R. Geiger in there, and he's one of my favorite artists in the world. And um, I remember taking it to one of my teachers and trying to tell them that that was the kind of work I wanted to do. And I just remember him being like, "That guy'll never be a fine artist." Uh, uh, and so yeah, I don't know. I want to say that when I finally started tattooing, having the art history knowledge and just the overall technical skill that I acquired through going to college really helped me um, advance a little bit quicker or sort of hang with people who were more advanced quicker and actually perhaps pass them up a bit because of that knowledge. But at the same time, I was very bitter when I got out of college of how I felt. The things that really
Okay.
influenced me and drove me were looked upon.
So even though you weren't necessarily into the quote unquote fine art, what was it that you ended up taking away that made it beneficial for your tattooing and for your other art as you went forward?
Mainly that it kept me working, that I was actually doing something. At least that's the way I think it, that I was coming up with a method of operation, that I was working through ideas still, that I was having to meet deadlines basically, um, that I had the facilities to explore new things. I make music and I write poetry, and another student there suggested, well, the way to meld those things would be to take video. So I got into video work for a while. Um, and obviously, money is always such a huge thing for artists. So I mean, having a dark room at my disposal, having a woodworking studio at my disposal with all those tools, having welding equipment, but that's invaluable.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to come across all that stuff on your own. And was it the school that provided all that stuff to
Yeah,
you, or?
completely.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes, you got to make do with what you can if you don't have all that stuff. But okay, so what kind of art are you into right now?
Uh,
Like what kind of tattoos do you do? Or is it more like cartoony or realistic or
Black work is totally what I love, what I'm loving. Just there's something really beautiful and primitive about just plain black work, any kind. Like you'll see dot work mandalas or sacred geometry pieces, things that have like tessellated um, figures. Um, Black work sort of covers a lot of different things. My particular interest is in like big, heavy, solid black work, and then dot work that borders on realism. Um,
okay. So for people who aren't necessarily
yeah,
artists like myself, I'm not like a drawing artist or anything like that. Uh, Black work, that basically just means all black ink,
yeah.
no other colors, just shadowing, shading,
No,
and
actually, black work's usually like you said, just black. A lot of like it's hard to get as smooth and a complete gradation with just black. So typically it'll be, um, well, no, I shouldn't say typically. There, like I said, there's a wide range of stuff, but there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Very just graphic mandala designs. You'll see a lot of. Like I said, the sacred geometry stuff, which is basically Euclidean solids. I think that's the word I'm looking for.
okay.
Um, as well as like MC Escher type work, um, old illustration work that is just made up of lines, um, dot work, so like pointillism, um, work where the shading is done or made up of very tiny dots or variations of sizes of dots and concentrations of those dots. Does that make sense now?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of picking up what you're laying down now. So I just wanted to get that cleared up so I'm not like, oh yeah, yeah, black work, black work. I don't just
if I don't know something, I want to throw it out
Right,
there
right, right.
and learn it myself. That's kind of what this podcast is about a little bit. One, getting to know the artists and entertainers throughout the industry who are either getting started or have made it, or for those who are involved in the entertainment industry, maybe learning something from the people who I'm
Right
interviewing,
on, right on.
even if that person learning is me.
Right. I also really love black and gray work, and that's probably my the biggest call of stuff that I get for. So it's just borderline. I really like comic work, but I don't want to get too comic, too cartoony, I guess. But I do. But comic book art is kind of what made me want to be an artist in the beginning. When I was a kid, I collected comics, and I had the Draw Comics the Marvel Way book. Uh,
I think my brother had that.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's had to have influenced like an entire generation of artists.
Yeah. And who's your favorite superhero?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. What did you like about Spider-Man?
Actually, I guess if I have to think about it, when I was a kid, Spider-Man was my favorite. Now, as an adult, I guess I would have to say there. Um, I think it was. I can't remember what company came out with it, but there was a character in the early '90s called Martial Law. Um, it was right around like the Watchmen time and Dark Knight.
Okay.
And Martial Law was this character who came from the little reality they created there was like the government had basically made everybody's like had come up with a way to make people anybody's superheroes, and that they had this war, and all the superheroes or these basically soldiers that they made super powered went and fought this war, and then it was like the aftermath of them coming home. So now they had PTSD and they were addicts and shit and weirdos and fucked up, and they got into gangs, and it was just, and there were like they had this concept of pain hookers, so you could like because they didn't feel pain quite like other people, so you could have a rough week at work and then go hire one of these pain hookers and like beat the shit out of them because they couldn't feel it. uh,
Huh.
and martial law was a cop basically who was a cop of those. They called him a cape killer, a hero hunter, and his little tagline was, I hunt heroes, but I haven't found any yet. And he was like this, dressed in this like complete leather outfit that looked like almost a gimp kind of thing, and with a barbed wire wrapped around his arm. They even one eventually at some point they had him like up. They did a crossover comic with him versus Pinhead, and it was
Really, from Hellraiser?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I actually haven't heard of the martial law comic. I might have to check that out.
Yeah.
Did they make that into any sort of like animated series or anything,
No, they
or
didn't. I know at some point somebody was supposed to be trying to make it into a movie, and I would have loved to see that, but um,
you never know. Netflix may have it
yeah,
coming. They have a pretty strong comic catalog.
yeah,
They
yeah.
have like
There,
Daredevil, which is a hell of a lot better than the movie was. Then like Luke Cage is coming
yeah.
out.
Dude, Daredevil has
Uh,
better fight choreography than movies that are about fighting. Uh,
pretty
right.
much, dude. I was thoroughly I've been thoroughly impressed with a lot of the Netflix series coming
Yeah, very
out.
much so. I'm waiting on the Iron Fist is what I'm really waiting on.
Okay, all right. Yeah, when's that supposed to come out?
Um, I want
Or
to say
have you have a
next
date?
year. No, no, I don't know, man. I'm not. I've had too much on my mind to be cognizant of that.
All right, and one of those things on your mind, maybe this expo that you have coming up
Yeah,
in Las Vegas, right?
or exhibition, yeah, whatever. It's a show. It's my art. Yeah, yeah. The work is actually part of a larger project that I altogether call. I'm trying to make it sound like some sort of hidden occult book, the Alienum Ecstasis, which roughly translates in Latin as strange ecstasies. Um, and
Okay.
I, it's sort of, I guess, I'm trying to work towards making visionary art, trying to make ecstatic art, and for me, making art has been a lot of process of letting go of what I want to do or where I want to go with the art, and just letting something or whatever it is that's actually making art about me, just do that, and maybe if I can direct that or just enjoy the ride in general. So these works have been coming out. They had a bit of an erotic tone to them, like all my younger works actually did. So yeah, it'll be at the Erotic Heritage Museum.
Okay.
The book itself, strangely, is like I can't really wrap my head around it either. The things that I write are vaguely beat writer-ish, perhaps. I don't know how to describe them. I'm very influenced as far as things that I write by beat writing. Um, the very little bit of Thomas Pynchon's Gravity Rainbow that, that I can actually make it through. And H.P. Lovecraft is I can't get enough of H.P. Lovecraft's work. Uh,
So is this exhibit that you have going on? You said it's your first solo one. Is it a combination of like your slightly exotic art and stories that you wrote too?
I'm gonna make a small, what you call it, like a show catalog. There's only 10 pieces. It's a very small gallery, and the pieces are rather large, so there'll be 10 pieces, and I'll make them there will be a catalog that comes along with it with some samples of the writing that I was planning on putting together with that. But other than that, and hopefully that will all end up being collected into the larger work.
Okay, being from Central Illinois, how do you land your first exhibit in Las Vegas,
I don't
Nevada?
know that either, man. I'm kind of waiting until I get there to ask them how that how that happened. I just um, once I started, man, I actually graduated from college in like 2002, and even that was late. I got a 4 year degree in like 9 years because like after 2 or 3 years each, like for my associates and my masters after or my bachelors, I like after 2 or 3 years of not getting a degree, I'd go to the counselor and be like, "Why don't I have a degree?" And they'd be like, "Because you didn't take any of the curriculum courses." Then I'd spend like another year or two taking curriculum courses, and but like I said, once I was out of college, I stopped for a bit, and I really got into tattooing late. I was stuck in another job for a while and miserable. Eventually, I kind of made this pact with myself that I had to do something different because I knew I was miserable, and I told myself that if it was kind of all or nothing. So I was like, either I'm gonna start tattooing, or if I don't start tattooing by the time I'm 40, I'm just gonna kill myself. Um, and
That's quite the steep ultimatum for yourself
yeah,
there.
well, just I don't know. I was shooting for the stars, I guess. I really didn't want to give myself the option of failure. And so
Definitely a way to keep
it
motivated.
it took me about 4 years, but I got an apprenticeship, and time I was 38, and now I've been tattooing about 5 years.
How do you go about getting an apprenticeship with a tattoo artist?
Basically collected together enough work of flash stuff that might be tattoo designs or drawings that I did, and that was a learning process too, man. Because like I said, I stopped making art for a while, so in a way, and when I was at school, I had gotten away from what I was comfortable with drawing with a pencil, and I got into drawing with charcoal all the time, which was kind of a different world, and um, so yeah, I kind of had to reteach myself to draw, and then basically build a nice looking portfolio of stuff that people would like that I could take to every shop that I could find within a certain radius of wherever I lived, and ask them if they'd take a look at it and they have any advice, and if I got a good vibe, basically keep going back and bugging them, and um,
Okay.
so
So a little bit of persistence involved.
yeah, and getting used to people ignoring you or saying really dumb things or thinking you're really dumb, or um, you got to have a thick skin. I know I didn't when I was a kid and I tried to get an apprenticeship. I think I don't know. Everything happens for a reason, I got to think. So Yeah, I went to a lot of different shops and during that time, man. I met a lot of cool people. And you meet some assholes, of course, but that's what happens. So I just shopped around, and eventually I came upon somebody who was like, "You need to be tattooing," and um, bada bing, bada bang. We moved to that town, and next thing I know, I was a tattoo apprentice.
Nice, nice, nice. So, so you got the tattoo artist, your regular art, or the art that's I don't want to say regular art, but more art that is um, more conventional art as far as on paper and stuff. What would you call that? I'm running
I
out
don't
of
know. Like
words.
I don't know what I can say. It's surreal for sure. I don't know that I can say I'm part of anything. I hopefully I'm just doing my own thing, but I'm sure there's other people out there doing it in this gigantic world. So I'm just trying to make art. Period, and I'm not going to worry about whether it's fine art or lowbrow or highbrow or anything. The,
Whatever speaks to you, man, that's
yeah,
what you got to
yeah.
do.
The pieces I'm making now are like I said, they're digital. Originally, I was having them printed as like very large, glossy decals that I mounted on flat wood. And now I'm actually having them printed as like tapestries or like a hanging scroll kind of.
Okay,
Uh,
that's cool.
there's a Japanese sort of tradition of adhering paintings to hanging scrolls, kakajiku, I think they call it. I may be totally murdering that word, but I seen that and I was really,
I won't call you
I really,
on it.
I really liked the look of it. And I thought that one of the things I was running into making very large pieces is trying to ship them around anywhere or transport them is not very cost friendly and it's very cumbersome. So being able to try to roll these up really could kind of saves, and I think aesthetically they have an overall better look.
Okay, so with your digital art, do you use color or do you stick with the black?
Both. I do both. I of course love black and gray, and I do a lot of black and white or manipulate a lot of black and white photography. Um, and you have a lot of more freedom. I'm able to retouch and sort of, or at least I'm sure there's ways to do it better in color for people who really know what they're doing. But I seem to have a lot better luck working with black and white images. But I do color stuff too, and I love having some color, even if it's just a little hint of it somewhere in the piece.
Okay, cool. And after your Las Vegas show, you have another show that you're curating in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That involves art from other tattoo artists, correct?
Yeah, I did my best to try and alert artists. So it's in Racine, Wisconsin. I tried to get some Wisconsin artists and Illinois artists, and I think I went Minnesota, Iowa, Indiana. I tried to send out invitations to as many artists as I could. I think I may even have some from overseas. Yeah, it's art from tattoo artists who. Being a tattooist and being an artist are two different things. And being a tattoo artist just because somebody works at a tattoo shop doesn't mean they're a tattoo artist. There's something very distinct about a tattoo artist as opposed to a tattooist. Um, Tattooing is a technical skill. Being an artist is has technical aspects to it, but it's something different than being a tattooist.
So, what does separate that?
The best example I can think of is like really old school tattooists, like the guys that were tattooing in the 50s or 60s, even maybe even the 70s, I think is when they finally started to get a little what they'd call progressive. But I mean, 40s, 50s, 60s, um, those tattooists were thought of tattooing like a trade. Just it was just like electricity, it was just like plumbing, it was just like pipe fitting. You just knew how to lay a good tattoo. Everybody had the same 20 or 30 sheets of paper of designs, flash, and and that was your alphabet. You knew how to do that, and you knew how to lay it well, and that's it. And the idea of custom work or 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 uh, huge huge multi-sessions projects wasn't even thought of. This was just a
Huh.
wham bam kind of thing. It was a profession. It was a trade.
You got your Army or Navy or Marine
Yeah,
logo or emblem tattooed on you, and we're out the door.
right. Um,
So the tattoo artist is a little bit
the tattoo
more.
artist is somebody who and by saying this, I should also note that I'm not downing tattooists, because nowadays there's tattooists who they don't like to draw, they don't want to paint, they're not looking to make. They may see what they're doing as making art, but really they're technicians. Okay, there's tattooists out there who put your best printers to shame on skin. Because they can do things like photorealistic like nobody's business. But that's because they perfected the technical skill of doing that. Being an artist involves in the intent of doing of embedding something with emotion. It also it involves making art outside of tattooing.
Making art outside of tattooing is a big thing. Do you get a different feel for you personally anyway? Do you get a different feel between doing tattoo art and doing art outside of tattooing?
Not necessarily. It's the same. Yeah, if this makes sense, it's like the same groove. It's jumping into the same sort of flow that you're wanting. Does that make sense? You're wanting to jump into that same state of mind to go with what you're doing.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I got
tattooing
it.
actually kind of works for me because the way I work as an artist typically, or the way I used to work as an artist, would be that I tried to make things into sort of a conveyor belt sort of system for myself so that I could work on a lot of pieces at once. So there would come a time when all these sort of prep work would be done, and then I would be able to lose myself basically. There would come a point where I wouldn't have to think at all, where I could hope, the idea would be to just sort of jump on that flow and ride that and let that happen. And with tattooing, it's kind of the same thing. There's the prep work before you make sure you get everything down so that as long as you're following your stencil or whatever you've drawn on there, that you can just go and trust in that. If you're confident in yourself that you're going to be able to follow that you can just go and you sort of become automaton in that.
What type of art will you have at this event in Wisconsin? Since it's not the tattooist art, will it
So
be a
far,
wide range?
yeah, so far it's just drawings and paintings. I was really hoping to get some sculpture or maybe even some video work from somebody. Um, but I don't. We'll see. Actually, this weekend or next weekend is what I made the deadline for when people had to have work in, um, and I don't know. I know I was able to get someone to send me some Giclée prints. I think that's how you pronounce that too. Um, and other than that, I think it's just drawings and paintings so far.
Do you want to put a
With
date out? I'm actually going to release this on Tuesday.
Okay,
Do you want to put a specific date to that so when people hear this on Tuesday, they can be like, "Hey, I want to get art into you." They
yeah,
can do
sure.
so.
If they can have it to me, like by have to be able to have it in Wisconsin by the beginning of October. But if anybody can get any work to me by like the 3rd or 4th at thechristianbernal.com, um, I would definitely take a look at it and consider it.
All right, I'll put that in the show notes for sure.
Cool. The opening in Vegas is actually on September 3rd. It's a Saturday night.
Okay, September 3rd is the opening in Las Vegas. And what is the opening for the Wisconsin show?
That'll be October 7th, I believe.
October 7th. All right, on top of all this art that you're doing, you're also a musician and stand-up comic
I don't know
as
that I
well,
can call
correct?
myself stand-up comic. I don't. Stand-up comics work really hard, man, and I don't. I haven't. When I started doing comedy, um, I hit it a lot harder, and but once I about maybe a year and a half, 2 years into that, kind of when I just felt like I was getting my stride, is when I got my apprenticeship for tattooing. And once you have an apprenticeship, I didn't have a lot of money or time to get out, so my time on stage got greatly diminished. Um, but it was kind of a learning experience because I had to work differently. Typically, what I like doing is storytelling or it's like very long form comedy. Um, and to do that, you have to be on stage fairly regularly because, or at least the way I
Yeah.
worked it was because I don't write a lot of stuff. I try to work it out, and it sounds silly or cliche, but I try to work it out on stage, and and to do that, you've got to be on stage at least 4 or 5 nights a week to really do it good. Um, and once I got to a point where I was only on stage once or twice a month, that really didn't work. So I had to sort of pare things down to like jokes and work on my tight five and try to work up to a tight 10, which wasn't how I worked things before. So that was kind of cool, actually. I appreciated it.
Okay, cool. So, is there anything that helped you say that you learned from stand-up comedy and tattooing by any
Yeah,
chance? Really?
yeah, totally.
What parallel was there?
In like my biggest takeaway from or my biggest thing with comedy was like not backing down, not backing down on something and really committing to something. Like I'm very like I don't want to say I'm really physical, but I definitely in the beginning I kind of was, and I remember I did this I had this bit when I was starting out where like it could have been I don't here's the thing, it was over the top and it was a bit crazy, um, and it killed when I did it right. But for some reason, I did it at this one place where I had some anxiety already, and the entire front was like this bachelorette party. And for some reason, they thought what I was doing had to do with rape, but it did not, like in any way.
Okay.
So I mean, right away, they sort of like literally, they said, "That's rape," and like they crossed their arms and like all got these ugly faces on, and and I tried to switch it up. I wanted to please them, you know. I wanted to please the audience, and then I feel like that taught me a lesson. I should have like it went downhill really fast from there because I hadn't prepared anything else, so it just sucked, and I ended up scrambling and completely being like one of my most memorable sort of bombs ever.
You learn the most from the bombs,
Yeah,
man.
totally. So as I knew, if especially if you're going to do something outrageous, you've got to commit to it, and you know, other it's like you take people up this what the fuck elevator or roller coaster, and then just leave them at the top. You got to take them all the way over, no matter what, even if they're not going to like what's on that other side. You can't just take them up and then try to ease them back down. That's never going to work. Uh, and on tattooing, actually, like I feel like I want to should write a fucking article or essay or something about like things I've learned from tattooing because every day I feel like there's different little lessons like and when one of the main ones was and it's another thing, god, these are like inspirational quote cliches, but it's like a never giving up thing, um is
Okay.
really apparent. Like I feel like I've given up way too easy on a lot of things in my life, but and like I really tried hard to get the tattoo apprenticeship, and when I did, I felt like I that was one of the things that I had worked for the hardest, or waited for, or really wanted the most. And so when I relate this to not quitting because like at least the first year, maybe even two, that I was tattooing, there would come a point in doing the tattoos where I wasn't confident enough in what I was doing that at some point in that tattoo, almost always there would be I would stop and look at it and be like, "Oh my God, what have I done?" Like just thinking, I've just I've destroyed this person's arm, or I've gone to such an extreme here that there's no saving this already. I completely embarrassed myself, and this person.
You didn't say it out loud, did you?
No, no, no. But there's was so many times that there just can't. It was a regular thing, like every and but you can't, like you said, you didn't say that out loud, so I couldn't stop. I could not. It's not like a drawing where I could set it aside and go, I'm no good, blah blah blah. Um, I put it, stop and whatever, leave, go out, get high, whatever it took. But with tattooing, or at least for me, it was like I can't stop. I've still got to work this. Um, at the very least, I've got to believe in myself enough or push myself enough to finish this, to try. Um,
Okay, yeah, that
it
makes
doesn't, and doesn't that relate to everything? Like if you do
yeah.
that with everything, if not going through with it wasn't even an option, how much would that? Oh God, how many things in your life do you think you could would have been different to get through those things? It's like a constant ego boost, you know.
Hell yeah, dude. That's like a huge rush. That's like one of the biggest rushes. I've done stand up in the past too. I haven't done it for a while because I've been focusing on this
Yeah,
podcast. But yeah, that was one of the biggest rushes up there too. When like
yeah,
you're not doing well on stage, and then you manage to turn a joke around because you stuck with it and carried it through. Same sort of situation. And those are some of the biggest rushes that I got while I was on
totally,
stage.
totally.
So we're already kind of talking about it,
Uh-huh.
but in the show, I like to ask my guests if they have any advice for people starting out in the industry that they're in, or looking to take that next step. Do you have any advice for people in any of the genres of art that you're into?
It's the same thing that, like I said, I don't want to sound don't want to sound like a cliche optimism thing here, but it's like you can't don't give up. The believe in yourself thing. Don't don't compare yourself to anybody else. Don't do as I say, not as I do, because all these things I still I still totally do. I can look at my Facebook feed every day and look at people that I think have their shit together more than me or have it better or something, man. Um, but I'm telling myself this in the back of my head too, man. You can't give up, and believe in yourself. Shit, that's I know how hard that is. That's it, really. I don't know what else I could say to anybody else that would really be any good. Just believe in yourself and keep trying to move forward. Do a little bit every day. I mean, doing the work is part of the biggest thing I've found. Like even if I'm not feeling it, that's another thing. Like tattooing was drawing or painting or whatever. I could say I didn't feel like it that day, but once I was tattooing, I had to be in the studio every day. I couldn't not feel it. That's if I really want to make a living as an artist, you've got to be there. If you want to be a writer, you've got to be there. Put yourself in front of the computer, the typewriter, your pen and pencil, whatever. At some point, just sit down every day. If you do one thing for your dream every day, at the end of the year, that's 365 things you've done for your dream.
That's good right there. I like that. If you do one thing every day for your dream, that's 365 things you've done for your dream. I like that.
Right? Even if they're small things, shit.
It's a lot more than doing nothing. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
All right, so that's really good advice right there. What do you do to promote yourself?
I am so at in perplexed by that, dude. Perplexed how to promote myself with very little money, other than social network sites, and even those I don't know. I don't really know how to use Twitter or or friggin' Instagram. I try to share my things. I try to get them out there. I try to get in as many Facebook groups of people that seem to have similar interests and share my stuff with those people. I haven't wrapped my head around it yet, man. And part of that reason is because I feel like that's all right. Like I have so much because I didn't get to where I felt I should be or feel like I should be. Like I need some time now to amass mounts of work so that in a year or two, hopefully, or whenever I start to get my hands around promoting myself, I'll actually look like I was working that entire time on stuff. But yeah, other than like sharing my stuff on social media, and trying to get word of mouth out there about me, I am fairly clueless about promotion, man.
All right, well, I think that's perfect reason why to bring that up on the show.
Yeah.
And hopefully that it will help people figure out what they want to do to promote themselves, what they need to do to get to the next level, you know? And what you said, word of mouth and social media, using both of those effectively can be really good.
Yeah.
So I have one more question that I ask all of my
All right.
guests before we wrap up. But first, what is some contact information that people can get a hold of you? We have your email address if you want to throw that out again.
Yeah.
We were just talking about social media if you want to throw that out.
Actually, I've got I've got a website. It's thechristianbernal.com. It's still under construction, but if you go there right now, it's got links to to my Instagram. I have a little SoundCloud page that I only have one song on right now. I have my TeePublic site, which has over 40 different designs of mine. You can buy T-shirts from there. And my page eventually will have pictures of my tattoos, and like my Instagram has pictures of my tattoos. You can get to my Facebook from there. Please check it out. If you'd like, the song is there for everybody to listen to.
I almost overlooked that. What style of music is that? What are you in a band or?
No, actually, I just write my own stuff and make my own stuff. Only song that's on there right now is a cover song of it's the old blues tune. I Just Want to Make Love to You.
Okay.
But that was sort of me wrapping my head around getting some new software to try and produce music with, and tattooing's opened me up, man. Like I said, I'm only 5 years and a little bit plus into that now, and I had stopped making art, like I said, and once was able to be in a creative environment all the time, sort of everything started happening again, and that's so I've been able to get work out, and finally I've always wanted to make music that's always, that was like the thing when I was a little kid. I wanted to be a rock and roll star, man. So, being able to make music now and be comfortable with it is a great relief.
Awesome, dude. Now my final question that I ask on the show to all my guests, it has to do with the name of the show.
All right.
It's how do you live uncontained?
Man, that's a kind of a rough one.
That's why I save it for last.
You know what? There's an old guy that's kind of like in this area. He's famous now. He's passed away. His name was Solo Haynes. He was like one of the only tattoo artists in this area for a long time, and so everybody remembers him. And he was very cool to me when I was looking around for an apprenticeship. And I remember saying something to him about a job, and he told me. He told me this, and before I say it, I'm going to tell you, I laughed too. You almost can't help but laugh at this because it sounds silly, but
okay,
but it's so totally true. He said, tattooing's not a job, tattooing's a lifestyle, and and it is, and that's how I feel like I live uncontained. I don't live by anybody. I pretty much I would say 90% of jobs out there, there's nothing like tattooing, and that's what I always wanted. I wanted a job that sort of was my life. I didn't want a job where I felt like I needed a vacation, where I felt like oh my God, I'm going to work and I have this life outside of work that I have to try and have. No, because my job is my life. I didn't want anything. I didn't want something that was going to be separate from my life. I just wanted to live my life, and I think that's how I do it.
Right on. Yeah. And there's too many people who work like 5 days a week looking to get through to the weekend, like just counting down the days to the 2 days where they can be themselves all day.
Yeah. And so here's another thing. It's a hard pill to swallow, but trying to part-time any sort of creative endeavor is killer. You don't have an option. If that's what you want, if you want to live as a comic, as a writer, as just an artist in general, at some point or another, you're going to have to sacrifice quite a bit. You're going to have to not be totally happy. You're going to have to deal with maybe not being able to afford having kids or follow whatever modern script you feel or somebody else told you you're supposed to go by. It's not going to be easy. Everybody is creative nowadays. Everybody can get a website, and everybody can look professional, and you have to want it more. That's it.
All right, perfect, man. Thank you. What are the dates on your shows again? Plug those again.
Yeah. The Alienum Extasis is at the Erotic Heritage Museum on. It'll be there hanging September through October till the end of October, and the opening will be on September 3rd, Saturday, September 3rd. Please come out if you're in the Vegas area. If you are in the Racine, Wisconsin area or anywhere near there, in October 7th, we'll have our opening for Tattoo Artist Beyond the Skin. And there should be a really, really interesting a cross-section of work from artists all over the country and possibly even internationally. And maybe even stuff to buy yourself or check out, or at least get to see some cool tattoo artist work.
It's October 7th, right?
Correct.
Before I let you go, Christian, I got one more thing that I'd like to have all my guests do for me.
Right.
And that is to sign off the show for me. Will you do me the favor?
Certainly. This is Christian Bernal, and I live uncontained.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Uncontained, and thank you again to Christian Bernal for being on the show and talking about his career in art and all the forms of art that he does and how he lives uncontained. That's right. And thank you for getting to iTunes and rating, reviewing, subscribing, and sharing. And it doesn't have to be iTunes. It can be whatever pod player you enjoy. But please get there, show some love for the show and some love for the guests of the show. Make sure you're going out, checking out their pages, and checking out their events as well. Check in the show notes for more information on Christian's events coming up, including the 2 art shows or whatever artistic endeavor he may be taking on next. Thank you for listening, and as always, live uncontained.